Reddit, what's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? U/Devoids responded. I saw an ad for a work-from-home type job. It didn't sound scammy and sounded sort of legit. So L asked for more info from the website. Enter your email thing. It was crap and was sending me spam several times a day. For whatever reason blocking it didn't work. I got annoyed one day and answered back, "Stop spamming me." The guy actually answered. He actually monitors that address. He told me to unsubscribe. Which did nothing. After about another week of it, I came up with an idea. I took his email address he answered from and added it to his own list. Then signed it up for any other spam I could find. A few days later it stopped spamming me. U/Drunkatchurch responded. Delivered pizzas about a week for my best friend's shop. Warned me about a few customers, but one in particular was always rude to the drivers and never tipped. Lucky for me, I got to deliver his order of a single calzone, maybe $6 or $7 total, and he tried to pay with a $50 bill. All the menus and the website prominently said nothing over a $20 bill for deliveries, and he'd been their customer long enough to know that. But when I told him this while explaining how I didn't have enough change, he got extremely rude and was loud about how it's not his fault and that drivers should always carry enough money on them. So I did what any person in that situation should do, and told him not to worry about it, and I'd pay for the order. For those few seconds he thought he'd won a free calzone by being a dick until I pulled it out and started eating it as I walked back to my car. Of course he MF'd me the whole time I was walking, but damn if that wasn't the best tasting calzone ever. U/TaxatDuck responded. Every year I go away for 2 to 3 weeks to work in a different location. One summer, when I rotated through my usual supervisor took some time off. To cover the 3 weeks they brought in a person from outside of our group to supervise. I was working my ass off, doing my work and what should have been the supervisor's work. We were set up in a temporary office, with no connections to the outside world. We had plenty of work to keep us quite busy though. The supervisor's day consisted of playing solitaire all day on the computer, and then yell for an hour at the end of every day that work wasn't getting done fast enough. 2.5 weeks in and I had enough. I deleted the shortcut for solitaire off of her desktop. Pandemonium breaks out, she lost her fucking mind. I had to swear that I did not delete any programs from her computer, which was completely accurate. I watched her over the next few days I was there, do any and everything to get a connection, so she could download solitaire. She even tried to get AOL working on the machine, so she could dial up and get it. U/Pabstanjaz responded. Me and a few workmates were at an Italian restaurant for a leaving party, when I had to go toilet. Came back and carried on eating my pizza. Turns out one of my colleagues poured the chili oil all over my pizza, and that shit set my mouth on fire, plus I'm not a big fan of heat anyways, so I basically had to write off a slice of pizza. Anyways, the guy that did it found it hilarious, and since he covered his food in the same oil, I figured he'd have oily fingers from the bottle. You've got something in the corner of your eye, Callum. His left eye went completely red, and didn't stop watering for about 15 minutes. U/Stanciat responded. My roommate and her SO loved doing elaborate jigsaw puzzles. After I found out she cancelled our lease, leaving me 1 week to find a new place to live, I threw away one piece of 2 different puzzles they were working on. Before you ask, she was able to do this because I was 17, and not able to legally sign a lease. Edit. I'm a she, dad was on a boat, mom was. IDK where that crazy girl was at. Everything turned out cool. I'm married and am a mom to an awesome little girl. I don't know why the adults in my life let things go down like that, maybe cause we live in a certain southern state that rhymes with Malabama. Edit, stupid phone. U/Curious Pursuit responded. I lived in a cheap crappy apartment with roommates and we all worked in fast food. Money was tight. One roommate ended up unemployed for a few weeks and then got a job as a bank teller, making much better money. However, while unemployed she had missed a rent payment, which we had scraped together to cover for her. 2 weeks into the new job, she gets her first paycheck. Obviously we are expecting immediate payback. Day 1 she says something along the lines of she couldn't do personal business, cash a check, during work so she could pay us in a couple of days. The Friday she was supposed to pay us, she comes home with a big shopping bag and casually mentions she can't pay back rent yet because she had to buy new work clothes. When roommates and I got upset, she went total bitch on us that we didn't understand how to work a professional job because we were only food service, and basically told us we would get our money when she felt like it. That weekend she misplaced her name tag required at work. She spent hours searching for it. At some point, I came across the name tag in a random spot and said nothing. She kept searching for it all weekend and was panicked that she would look bad to her boss, etc. I never moved or took the name tag, but the whole time I knew where it was. She never found it and had to get a new one. She also never paid the back rent, and we kicked her out a few weeks later. You/Hoosier Barbie responded. I used to deliver pizza for Domino's. It was my last shift and there was this house that was always rude. I called to ask what the house looked like and they said I gave you the address, and hung up, never tipped, etc. I got to their house and they gave me a check for 1 cent less than what the total was. I said, I am going to need the extra penny. They grumbled off and took their time hoping I would give up, but I just sat there holding the pizza. They finally came back all pissed off and gave me the penny. Note that they had no intention of tipping. They gave me the penny and I chucked it out into the street and left. They saw me do it. It was satisfying. You/the Nevermore 52 responded. During my freshman year of high school, I was in a biology class that was made up of mainly juniors. This one guy, who sat next to me, would always be a jerk to me during class. I always did well on the tests, so he would always look over and copy the answers from my scantron. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that I knew he was cheating off of me. Well, one day I got fed up with this guy messing with me and cheating off of me. So the next test comes around and sure enough he starts copying my answers. I finish the test and so does he. He gets up and turns his test in and comes back to his seat. I looked him in the eyes and proceeded to erase my entire scantron. I then retook the test, this time marking the correct answers. The look of panic in his eyes was so satisfying. He ended up making a 2% on that test and never cheated off me again. You/Green Elite 87 responded. Not me, but a friend's story from his time in the military. Receives care package from grandparents of 7 pounds of homemade fudge and cookies, but immediately has to go on a long mission, like 2 months long. Instructs his bunk mates to wait for his return and all will be shared. He returns, there's less than £1 left. There's initial outrage to be sure, but he's calm about it. You'd rather see his outrage than his calm face, because that's when he's plotting your demise. Weeks and months pass, and he has plotted. Finally he's scheduled to be in the same vehicle as them. The night before, he chows down on 2 boxes of Oreos and a gallon of milk. Lactose intolerant. His head is sticking out the top hatch, and made a seal asterisk with his belt and equipment. Just as they got too far to return, he lets loose the most vile, sickening flatulence. He was happy to, quite literally, shit his pants. The guys inside ended up vomiting all over the inside of the vehicle, and ended up having to pay my friend back the market value of the fudge, which he never got to taste again, because his grandmother passed away before being able to make another batch. You/Irish Zombieman responded. You young uns here might not believe it, but back in the early 90s, supermarket cashiers had to type every price in by hand. I was at a Vons in San Diego, walking toward the only open check stand with a single bottle of soda in my hand. Suddenly this hoity-toity lady, with a cart stacked to the top, flew out of one of the aisles like a freight train and cut me off. I'm in a hurry, she said, then looked away like she was annoyed that I'd been born. I looked at the cashier. He rolled his eyes and got to work. 5 minutes later she's walking out the door, and it's my turn. You're good, says the cashier. I put your soda on her tag. Damn, that felt good. You/Taught responded. When I was a senior in high school, I was in a group English project with 2 other people. We had to read the assigned book, and over the course of a month or so we had several mini projects to do before the final presentation. These mini projects were designed so that each person would be covering a different section of the book, and they would all be combined for the finished product. The night before the first mini project was due, I learned that neither one of my group members planned on putting any more effort into the work into the project than spark notes and bullshit. I ended up pulling several all-nighters trying to just get a passing grade. Fast forward to the day of our final presentation. We were going to be the last group to present, putting us after the lunch break in the middle of class. What I hadn't told anyone was that I was going to the blood drive that our school was having during lunch to donate. I go, donate, and spend a couple minutes making sure I'm not going to pass out afterwards. I come back to the classroom and find my group halfway through the prezi I had made for the presentation. Apparently they had been floundering, making shit up on the fly, and making it very clear to everyone that they had never read the book, or had any idea what the fuck was going on. Teacher has her head in her hands. I walk back in, and my group says, oh thank God he's back. I restart the prezi, give the presentation, and took my seat. Explain what happened to the teacher after class. Got a passing grade. 90% sure they failed. You/Kupea responded. I worked at a 50k plus tech company. I worked with a PM, Maggie, who misread my email and got her dates messed up. She scheduled a meeting for Thursday instead of Friday. When I told her she scheduled on the wrong day, she got mad at me and emailed all my managers up to my vice president, 4 levels of management, to say how much of a troublemaker I was. It was her own fault for not being able to read. 2 years later, I have to work with her again, and I pretend like I'm all happy and friends with her. 2 years after that, I quit and move on to a better company. I get an email saying that Maggie is applying to my new company, and said I could provide a positive reference for her. I email the recruiter and blast all my 6 years of shit on her and block her from getting hired. Take that, Maggie, you fucker. I never forget. You/NYC_gypsy responded. Roommate in college was disgustingly messy and a raging bitch. When I had the flu once, I had left a blanket and sweatshirt in the living room to keep warm. Woke up to a text along the lines of, "You're a disgusting pig. The apartment is a disaster. Get all of your belongings out of the living area, or we are going to have a problem." And honestly, if she had nicely asked, then fine. And if she weren't insanely messy, then fine. But she had to go full out bitch. She had forgotten that I had provided all of the furniture for our apartment. Couch, table, TV, etc. All my belongings. So, while she was in class, I called up some friends on the football team that occasionally helped people move for spare cash. We loaded up every single piece of furniture onto their truck and just parked it a few blocks away on the street. Cue my roommate coming home to an empty fucking apartment, screaming at me and calling me names. I just told her I was following her orders and I moved out all of my belongings. She was dumbfounded and really had nothing to say. Obviously brought the furniture back hours later. But certainly proved my point. TBH, that's only one of many petty points I had to make to that bitch. You/Hendigal responded. Boss paged me on my wedding night, yeah, bad on me for leaving the pager, but in my defense it automatically turned on after charging, and I wanted to have a full battery before setting off on my honeymoon trip. He did it as a joke, but it came at an inappropriate moment. We had a page only if something's on fire policy, so I had to call in even though I had just gotten married and was about to go on 2 weeks vacation. When he answered, he laughed so hard I just had to do something about it. So when I got back, I programmed the mail servers to call out on their phone lines and hit his pager with dial-back numbers for phone sex services. At 4 a.m. every day. His wife got this pager before he did one time and saw a text message something like, "I loved how you described how you would K me Jerry. Call back when your wife's gone for the day." Wife was not amused. She thought he'd been calling phone sex operators and tore him a new one. He knew it was me, but he was too stubborn to ask me to call it off. So it kept up for weeks until he finally figured out where the script was running from and used it to page me instead. We had a back and forth pager war for a while, but then it all fucked up when an actual data center emergency happened and one of us ignored the page thinking it was the other pranking him. That ended the fun. You/J O'Hare responded. A horrible former co-worker always claimed she worked way more hours than she actually did, and when she was at work she just browsed Facebook all day. The doctor owner was very hands-off and just let her do whatever she wanted despite me going to him with proof, so I decided to take revenge. She was not computer savvy at all, so Elle removed Internet Explorer from her desktop and installed an identical icon that, when clicked, would instantly restart the computer. It was so satisfying when she would forget and click it, losing anything that she was working on. She would always grumble and complain about the virus on her computer. I started a new job about 3 weeks later, and when I left it was still giving her problems. You/O'Holright7 responded. Used to work with people who were tech illiterate and one woman talked on her personal cell all day, while me and a co-worker on her time did all the work. We talked to all the bosses etc., and nothing was going to happen, she was in the in crowd. So one day I turned off her middle monitor, we used 3, just so it'd be blank and that'd show her, 11-hour days are rough with someone who could help, but was too lazy. I wanted a petty victory. The next day I shit you not 4 people were at her desk trying to get it to work. She started an hour before me, I chuckled and took my seat, and got to work, because it needed to get done by lunch. I finish our presentation, get it all set up before lunch and they are still at her desk. It's been 6 hours at this point. I figured there must be something big they are doing, I'll help. I walk over and the middle monitor is still off and they are talking with our in-house IT department, and were at the point they replaced the cord, and were going to order a new monitor. At this point I asked if it's turned on, they look at each then at me. Of course it is, which is when I reach over and turn on the monitor and boom, it turns on and displays correctly. I was so disappointed, proud but disappointed. Doctor, I turned off a co-worker's monitor and they couldn't fix it for 6 hours, until I turned it back on. You/deleted responded. I used to work shifts many years ago, including regular night shifts. My boss was an unpleasant person to say the least. He would leave his keys on top of his locker. One night I took a small file to work and filed down 1 or 2 teeth of his front door key. The next day he was telling everyone of how he got home, and his door lock was broken, and he had to get a locksmith out which cost a fortune, and he didn't get much sleep. Happened again a couple of months later. Then his car key got some treatment. I stopped after that as I heard him mention it was getting suspicious that all these locks stopped working. But, unknown to me, other colleagues also disliked him. One night his locker disappeared entirely. Rumor has it that it's part of the foundations of an office block in London now. You/Runil87 responded. Had an ex-roommate whose girlfriend, over time, just started living at our house, and refused to chip in on rent and utilities. Even after multiple conversations about how it would be more beneficial to split things between us all, there were 3 of us living there before she started being a leech. Each month the utility bills went up, which really pissed me off, because they were in my name. The house had 1 garage, but a double-wide driveway, my roommates, and I had it planned out who parked where according to who left for work at such and such times. The GF started parking in my space, leaving me to park in the street and throwing off the parking arrangements. She also ruined a few pots and pans my mother had given to me by using metal utensils, and then leaving them in the sink to get rusty. After a while she stopped socializing and sequestered herself in his room all the time, and we got mice, because she was keeping food in the bedroom. The thing that really pushed me over the edge though was when I discovered she had been using my cosmetics when she had her own. Ended up getting pink eye because she just wouldn't stop using my makeup, even after I removed it all from the bathroom. My petty revenge was pissing in her shampoo. Not a little squirt either. I made sure to get nice and dehydrated and filled a solo cup, then poured it into her bulk-sized shampoo bottle and shook it up. This happened years ago, and it still gets me riled up like nothing else. No regrets. You/Victor Blimp Muscle responded. My wife used to keep these little Godiva chocolates that she likes in her desk at work, but started noticing some of them missing and figured it must be someone from the overnight cleaning staff taking them. Fed up with losing her not inexpensive treats, she decided to get revenge on the choco thief in question by replacing the good chocolate with little squares of chocolate laxatives that looked just like real candies. The next morning she saw several of the laxatives gone, and then from that day forward, she was never missing another one of her good chocolates ever again. You/Alan_MacJiverson responded. My uncle took revenge on the FedEx guy that regularly picks up deliveries from his stone working business. He produces things like headstones, address stones, name brick, etc. Single order address stone are about 18 by 4-inch blocks of limestone. Usually we individually box stones, load them onto a pallet, and bring it to the back of the FedEx truck with a forklift. The delivery man just slides the boxes into his truck. One day, FedEx showed up early and grumpy, and took off in a bit of a fit before we could finish boxing all of the stones. We missed delivery dates and my uncle was pissed about it. Before FedEx showed up the next day, always the same guy, my uncle flipped open whatever a forklift's equivalent its hood is, and told us to act like the lift was broken. He also told us not to help the delivery man load boxes. I can't remember how many box stones the guy had to deal with, but I know that by the time he was done lugging stones across the warehouse and into his truck he was out of breath and drenched in sweat. You/XIGRIMXREAPERIX responded. Knew a crazy kid in elementary. Kid jumped across the table and tried to choke me out. I got suspended BC. I instigated it by saying he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, when that the only thing that kid ever talked about, and was wearing a Cocoa Puffs shirt that day. Senior year of high school, kid was in my design class. Needed to get AC or better on the final. Over the year I found out the kid was taking my work off my shared drive. High school IT was dumb and each kid's folder was public, and copying it. For the final I purposely fucked up the drawing in my folder, but the kid didn't double check it. He turned it in and failed and had to go back and be a super senior. TLDR. Kid choked me, waited 10 years, made them fail high school. Edit. I turned in an A+ DWG. Left a shit DWG in its place. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one.